No one expected the afternoon to end in disaster. The sun was still gentle, the wind still warm, and Diep was smiling as she placed a bowl of porridge on the small table beside the bed where James had been resting since the previous night. He had seemed tired, but he assured her it was nothing serious. "Just work stress," he said. "Just a headache, nothing more." But Diep noticed the unusual paleness on his face, the heaviness in the way he breathed, and the way his fingers trembled whenever he tried to sit up. She wanted to call the doctor again, but James smiled at her, weak but reassuring, and she gave in, sitting beside him, wiping sweat from his forehead with a warm cloth. "After this week," he whispered, "I'll take you somewhere quiet, away from everything, just you, me, and the baby we haven't even seen yet." Her heart warmed. She placed her hand gently on her stomach, still surprised every day that there was a small life inside her, a life created from love, from longing, from all the storms they had survived together. She opened her mouth to respond, but before she could speak, James suddenly stiffened. His eyes widened. His hand slipped from hers. "James," she called softly, then louder, "James!" The bowl she was holding crashed to the floor as she jumped up. James's body jerked once violently and then collapsed backward. His lips turned pale. His chest stopped moving. The room fell into a horrifying silence that swallowed Diep whole. She shook him desperately. "James, please, please breathe!" Nothing. His heart, his strong, steady heart that had once carried her through fear and loneliness, had stopped. It was barely a few seconds, but for Diep it felt like the end of her world. Tears streamed down her face as she screamed for help, her voice cracking with terror. Neighbors rushed in. Someone called an ambulance. Someone tried CPR. But Diep could only cling to James's lifeless hand, begging him to return to her, to their child, to the future they had promised each other. When the paramedics arrived and lifted his body onto the stretcher, Diep felt her own legs give way. She followed them, trembling, her vision blurred with tears. In that moment, she didn't know if James would survive. She didn't know if fate still had mercy left for her. She didn't know if a miracle would come or if the love of her life had slipped away forever. The hospital corridor smelled faintly of disinfected and cold metal, a scent Diep had always hated but never feared until now. She sat hunched on a hard plastic chair outside the emergency room, hands clasped so tightly her knuckles turned white. Her clothes were still stained from the porridge that had spilled when James collapsed, but she didn't even notice. All she saw was the door in front of her, the one that separated her from the man who carried her entire world in this heartbeat. Nee, who had rushed to the hospital the moment she received the trembling call, sat beside her, gripping her arm. "Diep, breathe. You have to breathe, for the baby." But Diep couldn't. Every inhale felt like shards of glass tearing through her chest. The last image of James, pale, unresponsive, his body limp against the bed, kept replaying over and over, each time stabbing deeper. "He promised me," Diep whispered, her voice trembling. "He promised we would go away. He said he'd be there when the baby comes." Nee's eyes softened. "He will. James is strong. He's fought through worse." But Diep knew this was different. This wasn't business trouble, betrayal, a ruined company, or even the battles with his father. This was his body giving up. This was life and death. Minutes crawled like hours. Finally, the emergency room door opened, and a doctor stepped out, still wearing gloves, face calm but unreadable. Diep stood so quickly she nearly fell, but Ni held her steady. "How is he?" Diep asked, voice cracking. The doctor took a slow breath. "We managed to restart his heart." Relief flooded Diep, and her legs buckled. "But," the doctor continued gently, "he is not stable yet. His body underwent severe shock. We need to monitor him closely." Diep's relief rose. "Can I see him?" she whispered. The doctor nodded. Only for a moment. Inside the dimly lit room, machines beeped steadily, their rhythm reassuring but frightening. James lay still, eyes closed, an oxygen mask over his face, his skin cold. Tubes and wires connected him to life. Diep approached slowly, tears falling silently. She took his hand, the same hand that once held hers in the wedding studio, warm and full of promise. "James," she whispered, leaning closer. "Please come back to me, to us. I can't do this without you." For a moment, she thought she saw his fingers twitch. Or maybe it was just hope, fragile, trembling, desperate, refusing to die. The night deepened around the hospital, turning the windows into dark mirrors where Diep could see only her own exhausted reflection. Red eyes, trembling lips, hair sticking to her tear-streaked cheeks. She sat beside James's bed, refusing to leave even for a second. Nurses came and went, adjusting tubes, checking machines, whispering to each other. But no matter how many times they urged her to rest, she remained, fingers wrapped around James's cold hand. "Do you remember?" Diep whispered softly. "The first time you came to my house? You brought flowers, but you didn't even know I was at the market." A faint, sad smile lifted her lips. "You stood there like someone lost. That's when I first thought, maybe you needed me." Her smile collapsed into a sob. "And now I'm the one who needs you." James didn't move. His chest rose and fell only because the machine told it to. The heart monitor beeped steadily, each sound both comforting and terrifying. One wrong beat, one sudden flatline, and everything would shatter. Outside the room, footsteps approached. Ni peeked in, her face tight with worry. "Diep, you've been awake all night. You need something to eat. You're pregnant. You can't stay like this." But Diep shook her head instantly. "If he wakes up and I'm not here, he'll think I gave up on him." Ni's stern expression softened. She walked over and placed a hand on Diep's shoulder. "James knows your heart. He knows you're not someone who gives up." Diep swallowed hard. "His father did this," she said, voice trembling with anger. "He pushed him until his body couldn't take it anymore. All those years, all that pressure, James didn't deserve any of it." Ni nodded. "And that's exactly why he needs you now. Love is the only thing he has left to survive for." As Ni stepped out to bring food, Diep leaned closer to James, pressing her forehead against his hand. "James, our baby needs you. I need you. Please, if there's even a tiny spark in you, fight." A sudden shift in the monitor made her freeze. The beep slowed, just a little, but enough to make her heart plummet. She shot to her feet, panic surging. "James! James, can you hear me?" Nurses rushed in at the sound of the alarm. One pulled Diep aside, another checked the machine, a third called for the doctor. Diep stood there, trembling, her hands covering her mouth. This time, the fear felt different, sharper, deeper, because she could feel it. Life was slipping through James's fingers, and she didn't know if love alone was enough to hold him here. For a moment, the world stopped breathing with James. Diep stood frozen as the alarm shrilled through the room. Doctors flooded in, their voices sharp and urgent, words she couldn't fully hear through the roaring in her own ears. "Heart rhythm dropping! Prepare the crash cart! We're losing him! Stay clear!" Diep's knees nearly buckled.
"No, no, please," she whispered, gripping the edge of the wall to keep herself upright. It felt like her heart was being ripped open, piece by piece. A nurse tried to guide her out of the room, but Diep pulled away, shaking her head violently. "Don't take me away. He needs me. James needs me." The doctor shouted for space, and Diep pressed herself against the corner, refusing to leave. Tears streamed silently down her face, her body trembling uncontrollably. The defibrillator pads were placed on James's bare chest. 1, 2, clear! His body jolted. Nothing. Again, charge to 200. Diep covered her mouth, her sob muffled but raw. "James," she whispered, "please, please don't leave me." The second shock hit. Still. Nothing. A quiet, suffocating dread filled the room. Even the medical staff hesitated, just for a single breath, as if unsure whether hope still had a place here. Diep stepped forward, tears dropping onto the floor. "James," she cried softly, "do you remember the promise you made? You said you'd stay with me for the rest of my life. You said you'd hold our baby." Her voice broke. "You can't break that promise. Not like this. Not without saying goodbye." Something shifted, not in the machines, but in the air. A fragile, invisible warmth seemed to hover around James's still body. "Charge again, 250. The doctor's voice cut through the silence. 1, 2, clear! The shock went through him. Then, a sound. A faint, fragile blip on the monitor. "Heartbeat returning. We've got rhythm. Stabilizing." Diep gasped, her hands flying to her mouth as the steady beeping resumed. Her legs gave way, and she sank into the chair, sobbing in relief so intense it hurt. The doctor wiped sweat from his brow and turned to her with a small, exhausted smile. "He's not out of danger yet," he warned gently, "but he heard you. Somehow he fought his way back." Diep looked at James through a veil of tears, her voice a trembling whisper. "I knew you would come back to me." Her fingers touched his hand, warm now, still weak, still fragile, but undeniably alive. Whether it was love, a miracle, or something beyond explanation, James's soul had answered her call. And as long as he breathed, Diep knew she would not let go.
Life has a way of testing the strength of our hearts. Sometimes it does so gently, through small disappointments or quiet changes. But other times, it strikes with a force so powerful that we are left breathless, standing on the edge of losing everything we love. Diep's experience in the hospital, watching James fight for his life, is a reminder of one of the most profound truths. Love is not just a feeling. It is an anchor, a force, and a reason to keep going when everything else falls apart. Throughout James and Diep's journey, they faced judgment, rejection, misunderstandings, and the heavy disapproval of others. Diep was looked down on, hurt by words that should never have been spoken. James was torn between loyalty to his family and loyalty to his heart. Yet through every hardship, their bond remained rooted in something unshakable, a choice to stand beside each other even when circumstances tried to separate them. When James's heart stopped, Diep learned a lesson that changes a person forever. Life is fragile. A heartbeat can be lost in an instant. A promise can disappear with a breath. The people we love the most can be taken from us without warning. In that terrifying moment, she discovered that love is not guaranteed by time or certainty. It survives through presence, sincerity, and courage. Her voice, her tears, her desperate call for James to return to her, These were not signs of weakness. They were signs of a love that refuses to surrender. And perhaps it was that love which reached him when machines could not. Love often does what logic cannot explain. The lesson is simple, yet deeply human. Do not wait to cherish the people who matter. Do not hide your affection, your gratitude, or your devotion. Life is unpredictable, but love, when nurtured, becomes the one constant we can fight for. James returned because Diep's love gave him something to hold on to. Diep survived heartbreak because her love gave her the strength to hope. And together, they proved that when two hearts truly choose each other, even the darkest moments cannot extinguish the light they create.